Now that we know how to make use of Jupyter Notebooks, let's focus on learning basic Python for data analytics and data science. Let's first understand why do we use Python for machine learning and data science and not any other language. There are many other programming languages like C, C++, Java, or C#. Why do we use Python and not any of those languages? As a machine learning engineer or data scientist, your main task is to learn the business problem and create a machine learning model. Your task should not be to learn a programming language. Python is relatively easy compared to most other languages, so learning it would be easier for any professional. Second major reason is that it comes with many built-in packages and libraries that we can simply import and use in our code. There are packages for scientific computing like NumPy, Pandas, and SciPy. There are plotting libraries like Matplotlib and Seaborn. There are also packages for building machine learning models, so if you want to build a model on specific piece of data, you can simply leverage libraries like scikit-learn. TensorFlow, Keras, and PyTorch libraries can be used to build deep learning models. So you get many libraries for building machine learning models which don't exist in many other languages. It also has interactive notebooks. We can not only write code, but we can also write some text in Jupyter Notebooks. These are very simple GUI applications which can run on your web browsers. This makes it really easy to communicate your results with other developers. You can simply save those files in IPython notebook and send it to your teammates or any other business partners. They can simply run this notebook and will have the same output as yours. Python code also tends to be short. Here you can see the comparison of Java and Python code for a simple Hello World program. It's not a direct comparison, but almost always Python code tends to be smaller than same Java code. Let's switch over to Python Notebook and start learning the basics of Python programming language. I would highly recommend that you follow these steps with me to maximize your understanding. I'm going to show you third way to launch Jupyter Notebook. I have created this folder on my desktop where I'm planning to keep all my notebooks in the future. Now you can search for Anaconda and this time open up this Anaconda Prompt. Now to open that particular folder in the command prompt, click here and copy this location. Go to your command prompt and type cd for change directory and paste the location using right click. Hit enter and now you are inside that directory. Now type Jupyter Notebook and it will launch the Jupyter Notebook in your default browser. Let's create a brand new Jupyter Notebook and rename this one to Introduction to Python, Variables and Data Types. In Python, we have concept of variables. Variables are placeholders which can hold on to some value. You can create variable with any name and we can assign any value using equals sign. This line is called statement in programming. Every line we are going to write is called a separate statement. Here I have defined this variable with label as name and it has the value as Ankush. This will use some memory location in your system and label that memory location as name, and it will write the value Ankush into that memory location. This equal sign is called assignment statement in programming terminologies. Here we created a string data type. String data type is simply any text information that we want to save in a variable. If we want to print this variable, we can use the built-in function print. You can think of function as a built-in command. We will see how to define our own functions in the future videos. If I run this code using Shift and Enter, you can see that it prints the value of the variable. In Python, there are multiple ways to create string data types. You can use double quotes. You could also use single quotes. So if I replace these double quotes with single quotes and run this cell, you can see that it runs fine. There is third way to create strings. If we want to create multi-line strings, we cannot use these double quotes or single quotes in that case. If I try to use single quotes and try to create multi-line string inside them, let's print this value. You can see that it throws an error. This is our first encounter with the error. We will see them quite often and get used to them because you will always come across errors. You just have to learn to figure out what those errors mean and fix them. Here, it's a syntax error. It means Python couldn't understand our command. Fortunately, Jupyter Notebook clearly highlights the syntax and also gives the clear indication where the error is. Here, this arrow actually points to the location where the error occurs. Instead of these single quotes, I can use triple quotes. Triple quotes mean you have to either use 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes. So if I change this single quotes to triple quotes, it works fine. The good thing with triple quotes is that I can include as many spaces or new lines as I want. Now, if you have background in other languages like Java, C, or C++, in Python, you don't have to write any data type for the variable. In C or Java, you would do something like this. You would first define the variable with its data type, and then you can assign the value. Or you can define the data type along with its value assignment. But in Python, variables can take up any kind of data and they don't need data type for them. It's called dynamic programming language. There are data types in Python, but Python automatically infers those data types itself. Now, if we want to check the data type of this variable, we can use the built-in function type for that. You can see that it is of type star for string. This keyword class is special in Python. It means it's an instance of the class string. If you have object-oriented programming background, in Python, everything is an object. If you don't know what objects are, don't worry, you really don't need to know them, but I will cover the basics of Python object-oriented programming in later part of this course. Similarly, there are few other data types. Data types help computers store information in an efficient manner and helps them to make some operations efficiently. You can create a variable age and assign any number value to it. If we check the data type, it will be int for integer. If you want to assign any decimal value, then those variables are called float. I could also print its value just like any other variable. We can also convert one data type to another data type. This is known as typecasting in programming terminologies. So here I have defined this variable with the value 999. I can convert it to integer using int function. We put this value inside the int function and it will convert that value to integer data type. Similarly, I can convert integer values to floating point numbers like this. We can also convert integer or floating point numbers to string data type using stir function. This is very useful function, as we will see in the next video. If you have background in mathematics or physics, then you may have some idea about the complex data types. In Python, we can create complex data types like this. You might have come across these complex data types in your high school education. If I check the data type of this variable, you can see that it's a class complex. There is also another data type called Booleans. These are simple yes or no in plain English. In programming, they can have values true or false. I can define variable isAdult equals true. If I check its type, it's going to be bool for booleans. If I try to print this variable, you can see that it looks very much like string data type, but while creating it, we don't need to use quotes around it. True and false are special values that can be used for Boolean data types. These are very useful when you want to have decision-making logic in your code, like if the user is logged in, show him the profile page, else show the login page. We are going to cover all these concepts multiple times so that it will stick in your brain clearly. We can also write multiple statements in a single line, but in that case, we have to separate each statement by semicolon. Usually, you don't need semicolons if you write single statement on one line. Now, if I check the value of A, it will have the value 2. If I check the value of C, it will have the value 4. If we want to assign same value to multiple variables, we can assign them the values like this. If I try to print any of these variables, you will see that they have the same values. There is one more technique for variable assignment. You can assign multiple values to multiple variables in a single statement. You can do something like this. A, B, C equals 5, Python, and 10.2. Now to check all of these variables, I can separate them by comma and it will print all the three variables. You can see that all of them have been assigned the value in sequence. So what it does is that it matches first variable with the first value and second variable with the second value and so on. If we had more values than the variable names on the left hand side, then it will throw an error. It throws value error. It also gives clear indication on which line the error occurs. So you have to make sure that there are equal number of variables on the left hand side as the values on the right hand side. There are some rules in Python variable naming. The variable name must begin with alphabets or underscores. Variable names are also case sensitive, so variables with uppercase names are different than variables with lowercase names. There are few keywords in Python which cannot be used as variable names. These are special words which have special meaning in Python. We can look up those words in Python like this. You don't need to understand exactly what this code does. You will understand them as we learn more Python. Here I am importing a module named keyword. Module is simply other Python code written by some other developer, or it's already there in the language itself. Then here on this line, I'm using its attribute kwlist, which contains all the keywords used by Python language itself. We will learn most of these keywords as we go along. These are the keywords that cannot be used as variable names. When you are naming your variables, make sure to use proper names for them. You can definitely use A, B, or C as variable names, but those names don't carry any meaning in them. It's usually a good idea to name a variable so that it makes sense to another developer. You will always be sharing your code with your teammates, so having descriptive names for your variables is more beneficial than having names like single alphabetic characters. So variable names like age is better than A, but age in years is even better. You also don't need to write too long variable names because you will be using the same variable multiple times. One more thing, in Python, the convention is to use snake case for variable naming. If your variable contains multiple words, those are separated from each other using underscores. Some other languages use camel case but not Python. One last thing before we end this video is that we can write comments in our Python code. Comments are simple text that helps you understand about the logic of the program. You can write comment using pound or hash symbol in Python. Anything after this symbol will be ignored by the Python interpreter. So if I write a print statement here, it will print only that statement and will not do anything for this comment. There are few other complex data types in Python, but we will learn about them in the future lessons. We have covered a lot. If you think this was too much, take a break and come back for the next lesson. I will be adding some extra notes in these notebooks and will share those with you. I will also be adding some extra practice exercises in these notebooks to make sure that you fully understand these concepts before moving on to next lesson.